I've talked about how much I love Pandasaurus games, how simple and fun and easy to learn they are. Well, today I have the perfect game to continue that trend because today we're going to be reviewing the game. The game is super simple. We're just going to go over the setup and how to play the game real quick. Setup for the game is really easy. You're going to place out your 4 pile markers here. 2 of them are the 100 cards that are descending piles, and 2 of them are the number 1 cards, which are ascending piles. You are then going to shuffle the pile and deal out cards to each player based on the number of players that are playing. For a 2-player game, you're going to deal out 7 cards to each player, and for a 3, 4, or 5-player game, you're going to deal out 6. So, what's the object of the game? The object of the game is to play as many of the cards from this stack as possible. The catch to it is you have to play them in descending order in numeric values. So the cards look like this. So there are cards between 2 and 99, and you're trying to play all of them if possible. And you play these in descending order and these in ascending order. There are only a few points of clarification with playing the cards. You have to play at least 2 cards each until the pile runs out and nobody can draw cards anymore. You have to play at least 2 cards each, and you can play as many as you want. The rules are, if you play a card, you cannot play a card that is out of the sequence. So say you play 99 there and you play 92 here. You then can't play a 97 here because that would be an illegal play because it has to be in descending order. Say you play a 4 here, you would then not be able to play it 2. You'd have to play it here because this was still on 1. So we'll leave those here. I'm going to go over a couple of different circumstances. The only exception to the out of order or out of sequence play is in the case of something being exactly 10. So if you played an 86 there, if you have a card that is exactly 10 greater, you can play it even if it's out of sequence, 10 greater or less. So this is descending order. Normally you would not be able to play a higher card. So like I would not be able to play 97 on this. But because this is exactly 10 higher, I can play it and kind of try and reset the pile a little bit. The same would go with this. So say a 16. This pile has 16. You would normally not be able to play a card that's lower. But since I have a 6, I can play it on there because it's exactly 10 lower, which allows me to reset the sequence a little bit. So how does the game end? The game ends by either going through the draw pile and running down as many cards as possible to get them onto the piles, or it ends with you not being able to play enough cards. So if you get down to the draw pile being gone, you will continue playing without drawing cards after you play. And once you get to a point where you can no longer play, either the piles are too high or too low for you to play the cards that are in your hand, you'll then look at the rule book and it ranks based on how many cards you have left. They consider 10 or less cards being left between the players as beating the game. One last thing I want to touch on is the permissible communication. You are not allowed to specifically talk about cards' values. You can only talk about pile preferences, like you shouldn't play on this one or I'd like to play on that one, things like that. Nothing specific. You're not allowed to say your numbers, you're not allowed to ask for the numbers of other players, and that just kind of keeps it fun, so you want to stick to that. Now that you know how to play the game, I'm going to meet you back up top and give you my final thoughts. The game is super simple, easy to teach. It's just a game about numbers, and that's there's something to be said about a game that you can just bust out, teach really quickly in a couple of minutes, and be able to get 10 to 15 minutes of fun out of it. It seems like it's harder than it actually is. There was a couple of times where we were playing and it seemed like we were going to lose, but we ended up winning, getting the under 10 cards left, even though I felt like we were doing really poorly throughout the game. I like the fact that you have the ability to reset the piles a little bit. And sometimes you can chain them together. If you're lucky enough to, say, say you're in the descending pile and somebody plays a 16 and you're really low, but you have a 26 and then a 27 and then a 37, you can get yourself right back up there. I like the fact that you have to play 2 cards at least, unless the decks run out, but you can play more if you want to. So you can get your hand out there and you don't have to be restricted in, oh, I want to play all these cards, but what's it going to look like when it gets back to me, when it goes around the table, and it could kind of mess up your sequence. But you can just kind of play them all out if you can, which is kind of nice. I like that. It's a little bit different from like the game it reminds me the most of is an Okie Dokie. I really like Okie Dokie. We've played that game probably in triple digits almost. And that's a cooperative game where you're having to play numbers in sequence and you can reset them by playing the panda cards. And I like those kinds of games where you're not really allowed to communicate a lot. What's the other one? Hanabi, I think, the one with the fireworks. That's probably a harder example. We don't do very well when we play that game. But I like those kind of games where there's limited communication, limited knowledge between the players, and if you stick to that, because I've seen people who they tell too much information and things like that. You got to stick to the spirit of the game. But I like that. It's fun. They're quick. They're really easy to learn. Really easy to kind of introduce to anybody. The box is small. You can see it's easy to take anywhere. You can fit, like Pandasaurus games, you can fit multiple Pandasaurus games in one bag and just take it with you somewhere. It's great to bust out at parties, or not so much parties, but like conventions. They're good for conventions because you can bring multiple games and kind of get like a Pandasaurus hour going and get through like 5 or 6 games because they're so short. I think they're fun. You can't expect too much out of them because they are designed to be simple and easy to learn, but that's kind of a niche that we need filling, because not everything has to be a game where it takes you 25 minutes and an explanation of deep lore just to understand how to play the game. And this does what it's supposed to do. The title kind of says it all. The game. It's about as simple as it comes. If you like what you saw here today on the channel, hit that like button. Leave a comment down below. Do you have a favorite Pandasaurus game? Do you have a favorite cooperative game where there's limited information and you're not allowed to communicate? That's a fairly unique thing. There's games out there, but I want to see what everybody's favorites are. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any game reviews. Hit that notification bell so you know what's up, and I'll catch you in the next one.